5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Big Picture with African Uncensored. On this particular episode this week, I am with Tom Mukhwana, who came back from Kigali last week and he still refuses to tell me what happened over there. So I guess he started a new life.
Yeah, I did.
Why are you hiding
I'm going
this?
to live like Jan in the next 2 weeks.
Why are you hiding this from our viewers?
Because it's personal business. Just maybe I got myself a
Okay.
lifestyle in Kigali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you and your new life. But this week in studio we have a really, really amazing guest. He does a lot of advocacy work. I know you've seen him online. I know you've seen him on TV. Please welcome Julius Kamau.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I have seen you on TV a lot. And I think I have seen you at one of the protests that I was at. I think it was the Femicide March, if I'm not wrong. And you were holding up a sign that said, I'm forgetting. It was a very, very...
Yes, it's something to do with violence.
It was like when you blame the victim,
Yes.
you affirm the murderer.
Yes, when you
Yeah,
blame the
absolutely.
victim, you affirm the murderer. I remember seeing that sign, and we were walking around, and I was like, I know that guy. I've seen him somewhere. And then someone told me, like, you are at most of the protests. So welcome to the Big Picture, and thank you so much for joining us. So a little bit of background, so all our viewers can understand the work that you do. Kindly let us know who Julius Kamau is and how you got into the advocacy space that you are in now.
Okay, I'm a Kenyan, a law-abiding citizen. Let me say I'm just an average Kenyan, who has gone through a lot as far as the government oppression and the brunt of the oppression that we face from the government. And that is how I started my activism. You remember about the Kanjo kingdom, when they were killing our people, the Kanjos were killing our people. That is when I felt that I should not keep silent. And so I started facing the city council and all that. That's where I began my journey.
You went toe to toe with Kanjo people.
Kabisa. Because I did not understand why the people who are supposed to protect us turns out to be the ones that are killing us, that are taking away our wares, banning them, arresting our people, taking us to police stations and all that. It was so horrible. You remember Muhammad Ali did a clip on that, a video, a documentary rather. On that Kaju kingdom. It's out there. Yes. And the people who still did those injustices, those atrocities to our people have never been brought to book. They're still in office.
I feel like it's a bit of a problem, a cyclical problem, where it almost feels like you have to keep repeating yourself and like keep advocating for the same ills, because it just continues to spiral. So did the Kanjo kingdom, like fighting the Kanjo, was that the beginning of your work, or did you do any work before that? And also, do you do this daily? Like your advocacy work, is it like your daily, not job, but like does that take up every single day of your week, or do you do it sometimes and then balance it out with like a daily career?
Okay, I think before that I was just a common citizen minding his own business. I was working in Komba, and then when business became a bit low, so I came to town to look for green pastures, and that is where the Kanjo problem started, because they were very brutal in removing hookers from the city. In fact, they were able to drive us as far as Tungara. But they were still following us to Ngara to come and steal, harass our people, arrest our people, and do all those bad things they did to our people. So that is when it started. As far as being there, nothing is changing. Things continue getting worse and worse, and that is the challenge we have today, to understand why we are not able to change things at this time.
And I met you at that same protest that Justine is speaking about.
Yeah.
But before that, there were others. I think there was one where you were tortured after arrest. Yeah. I remember seeing a picture of you, and one side of your eye was bloodied.
Yeah.
And that picture stayed with me. And your voice has characterized a lot of these protests. Did that happen over time, or was it just a switch, as you've described it? Did it happen after seeing Kanjo do this repeatedly, or did it just happen once and you just decided, kinda?
I think before that, I tried to confront the Kanjo to make my fellow hawkers understand that we need to stand up for ourselves. But you see, the people out there are very ignorant. You tell them, they say you are mad. They say, this guy, I don't know, they don't want to join you. I mean, they're so much oppressed that they cannot see that they can be able to face the people, the brutes who are oppressing them. And so when I went out there, I was taking the fight higher and higher. Yeah. I was trying to look for a platform where we can air our grievances, where we can air our issues, so that they can be heard by the society and by the world at large. Yeah.
But besides what we see, let's take a step back. Okay. Before Julius and him encountering Kanjo and starting his journey, what else can you say about Julius that we don't know?
Yeah, and you can give us like some fun facts about yourself too. It doesn't have to just be about the work.
Yeah,
we would love to know a little more about Julius person.
I think I'm just a person who is always trying to do what is right, because I have my business in the city. And I have another small one in Gekomba, where operates when I go. Then in Gekomba, I open the bills, and some of them I bring them to town. So that's what I do. You know, in this country, to survive, you have always to be working. You don't have that time for leisure and all that. We don't, because maybe one time we thought that we could have that. And maybe we could make enough money to keep us going, because like those people, rich people do, or foreigners, they come and enjoy our country. But most of the poor people there do not have that time for that. They don't have the resources. Yeah.
I am terrified that a lot of Kenyans do not have the luxury to enjoy the country in which they work so hard for. And just to hear you recount that as a problem that has repeatedly been here, because we've seen over the last couple of weeks, months, when the Nairobi County decided that they're going to get rid of all the hawkers in town. And my question was like, where are all these small business owners going? Because that's how they make their daily bread. If you send them away from town, where they can access like a ready market, are you giving them alternatives? Are you redirecting traffic? Is there something that you have observed about those particular changes that maybe we've not been able to see, that has helped the hawkers or even harmed the hawkers more? Is there anything you've seen with those particular changes that have changed how hawkers operate?
No, I think to bring that thing into right, I think we have to go to get serious about the politics of this nation, because I believe like the problem of focus, I've come really to understand that it's created deliberately by politicians for political mileage. Politicians do not want to address our problems, or they are the cause of our problems, so that every 5 years they will come there and offer themselves as saviors. And when they do that, they will get votes from the people. That is how they treat us. That is how our system is made. And people are suffering out there. I mean, they ride on our suffering to get to power and to cling to power, which is a very, very bad thing to be happening in a civilized society. It's something that we must address and address fully. We must find a lasting solution, an immediate solution to this problem. Like the other day, the governor came into the media and said that he had used 255 million, you can imagine, to rehabilitate the back streets. But when you go there, you find and see that as an insult. It's an insult, and the governor right now should be somewhere in jail. If you are a country that works, that respects laws, the governor should be in jail right now, because it means he's squandered 255 million for hawkers. And then that problem still remains. The hookers will remain there. They have nowhere to go. We have a right. I'm not saying that we are supposed to be there in the streets. We are not, because it impedes other pedestrians. It complicates things for them. But we have a right to be given an alternative. where we should go.
Yeah.
And this issue where we allow our leaders to steal money meant to better the lives of the people, that is where we must come in and expose the leadership. Again, when this government came into power, they came into power on so many promises to the poor people. That is the Juakari people. That's the hustlers, the so-called hustlers. Hustlers are the one of the hookers are one of the hustlers. The boda boda people, the matatu people, and all that.
Yeah.
But now, and this is the thing that I was saying that we must address, and we must become serious about how politicians treat us, because it's not right how they come to us with the lies and all that nonsense. You see. Like when we are voting, as in fact, it's the poor people who vote. Rich people do not vote. You will not find a campaign in Karen or anywhere else, those rich areas or suburbs.
Yeah.
But it's poor people who vote. When we are voting, we are very important to the politicians. Yeah. We are dear to them. They even come down there and eat in our vibandas or in our kiosk and all that. But when we are done with voting, they send the police, the city council to harass us, to kick us out of the city. So it's an issue that must stop, and it must be made to stop.
Yeah.
So it hasn't changed, and I'll give it to you, Tom, in a bit. We've seen you continually advocate for various issues, but you've also been arrested a couple of times in the view of the camera, and maybe even when the cameras are absent. And I think also Tom could speak to this, because I think he was at one of the protests where he was arrested.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what that experience is like, considering you keep going back to the streets and you keep raising your voice. And I think the one video that absolutely scared me of you that I saw was the one where you were arrested, I think, at the presenting of the budget. Yeah, I think they tackled you. And I was like, that's not necessary. He's just one person. You could literally just calmly take him out of the area if the photo op is so important. But it absolutely did not make sense, considering you were just advocating that if this money is going to be presented, this is also, like, we need to understand what the budget is, who it's working for. So I'll give it to Tom just before
No, I think you can answer that question. And on top of it, I'd like to ask, does it ever get exhausting fighting for Kenyans? Because I know here a lot of times we often speak with so much despair and hopelessness, because one day we are angry and we are on the streets, and the next day, as I was telling you off air, we protest on Thursday, and on Sunday the president and his goons are out in the streets. And in church, before they go to the streets, there are people clapping. For instance, today we have this topic of the 20 million donation, which is 20 times his salary. It's just mind-boggling to even imagine. And they're people clapping, and when he steps out of church and those he pops his head out of a sunroof, there are hundreds of people surrounding those vehicles. And you've just been arrested, you've gone into jail, and you're in these cold cells repeatedly because of these people. Does it ever get exhausting for you?
It's very, very exhausting. It's also very tiring and very unrewarding. Because, let me say one thing. There's somebody who said that when you fight for Africans, you have to use one hand, because you need the other one to ward off the same Africans who are fighting you. The other day, I saw some people saying that even they've gotten to the extent that people are saying that I work for the NIS. Some of them are calling me a commercial activist. You can see that. So it's very, very exhausting. And but I still believe a time will come when people will understand. Again, when I go there into the streets, the same police who are arresting me, they've always been telling me this, and I don't know. I've tried to change them to change that that narrative, but it still keep coming up. They say, "Who has sent you? How much have they paid you?" I know today they've given you a good sum or a large sum. I tell them, no, you don't have to be paid to come and fight for your country. That's the problem we have in this country, that people believe that you have to be paid to fight for this country. Another thing I believe is that problem, we have the problem of the police. The police, it's a very big problem, because if you can see how they react to demonstrators, protesters, innocent protesters, it's so brutal. And you ask why? You ask yourself why? What are they fighting for? I mean, they're fighting for people who are stealing from us.
Even how they arrest you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bad. And I have come to realize that also this issue of police, we must address it. Because I believe we are a country that only tries to address the symptoms of our problems, but not the root cause. And unless we come to the point where we are ready to address the root cause of our problems, that's when we find the healing that we so much need in this country, or the change that we need. I believe police killings, police harassment, and all that, and police extortion is a colonial vestige. It's something that was started during colonialism. The police unit was formed to extort and to extract from poor Africans, and it's still happening today, and nothing has changed. So I believe everyone who is out there, everyone who is serious about seeing real change in this country, we must come together and brainstorm on those issues.
I love that you've spoken about the police extorting from people, and that being a colonial structure. And it's actually gotten so bad. I think I saw a story where 3 billion was collected in bribes, which is a ridiculous amount of money. That's like the economy of like literally a county. Like a county can actually produce that much money. So it's very worrying that the colonial structures are still extracting. And someone was saying they do have, I know it's probably a rumor, but it's probably true, that they do have a chama for bribes, which is so funny because like they've structured the bribery into a financial structure. So I will bring it to the story that we saw where the Nairobi City Council and KPLC decided to fight each other for territory and also for way leave fees, if I'm not wrong. So I think Kenya Power did not pay way leave fees, and Nairobi County decided to like deposit all every single thing that's supposed to be in a dustbin somewhere. They brought every single, I think a whole truckload in front of Steamer Plaza. Like they poured a bunch of hazardous waste in front of Steamer Plaza. And I kept thinking, for them it's probably just like tough wars, but for regular Kenyans, that's a health hazard. You could literally become sick. You know, like I feel like cholera, bilharzia were just joining hands and being so happy. It's like finally we've gotten the free rein. And when you see this as someone who like is a pedestrian or actually has to access the CBD all the time, what are these like ingrained issues that we have in this particular county that could probably be invisible? And then when you encounter situations such as like the one with KPLC and the county government, and Sakaja being like, oh, it was just a mistake, we've reprimanded the 2 officials, that's not governance. I wonder what you think about these particular interactions, considering when you speak up about something like this, you get arrested and you get mishandled. When the county government does it, it's like, oh, we can say sorry and nothing happens to them.
I think we have allowed our leaders to get away with so much. Like that happened, and we also it. As they in the media, it's making waves and all that. It's trending. Bad things have happened before that. Very bad things done by our leaders. But the thing is, we allow them to happen, and then we forget very quickly. So nobody is punished for that. So it will probably recur in future. It's very likely because nobody was punished for that. Nobody is getting punished. So it will make waves, people make noise, complain, nothing will happen. That is why they will repeat it. They will do it again and again. And if they are doing it to such an institution, what about an individual like me or like others there in the city who depend on the city for their incomes and all that? It's very bad. And one thing I would like to say is that we must find a way how we hold our leaders into account, because unless we do that, nothing will change. Because when you keep postponing injustice, it creates a society of chaos. Chaos everywhere, people are killed, nobody cares. You see the incident where that happened again in Kenyatta Hospital. Goons walked into the hospital and killed a sick man. You know, my question is, where were the management in the hospital, and why up to now nobody has been arrested? The same case with the Kanjo case, with the KPLC and the City Council task of war. Nobody has taken responsibility. The governor saying they have apologized. That's not enough. I think he should resign, and those who are responsible, they should be taken to court to pay for that.
And you know what's mind-boggling? You're absolutely right. If they're doing this to a huge institution like Kenya Power, imagine what they do to a regular Nairobian and get away with. And we've seen a few of these videos being recorded, right? But just imagine what happens in the back streets where you visit very often that we don't get to see in the media. But then zooming out and just looking at this bigger picture, how is the capital city of Kenya, which is regarded to be the angel of Africa, allowing dumpsters to walk midtown? You know where Steamer Plaza is, right? You know where that big building is? And they dump a ton of waste in the middle of that street, and they get away with it.
I think, to your point, I don't think there's a citizen arrest accountability structure going on, because obviously when you see something like that, you don't immediately think, oh, maybe the county is involved. You're like, what's happening here? You're literally just questioning. And if you were to go and report it somewhere, if you were to go, for instance, to report it to the police, the structures in place do not kind of support that kind of pushback. As Julius has said, I think you're actually going to likely be the victim. It's also inflicted in you that you're not supposed to bring this up. There's almost like layers to the justice that everyone gets to receive, and I think that's very problematic. And this brings me to, we also Kimani Ichungwa on Al Jazeera on his interview with Mehdi Hassan. I think it's called Head to Head. The show is called Head to Head. And he was asked very important questions, and he was not able to answer any of them. And it brings back the same issue of accountability. And I'll bring this to you, Julius, as what is like an experience with an arrest, and that the follow up with the lawyers and everyone to get you out, and that experience with the police, and having to do that repeatedly. You've said it's exhausting, and I would just like you to take us through something that maybe is not visible to the general public, that people need to understand about not just like police brutality and abductions, but the degradation of like your humanity in a point where you're literally just saying a very common statement. It's not even like a very radical idea. It's just that you want justice. You want very simple structures to work. Could you take us through what an arrest looks like, and the danger that the dismissal from someone so major in parliament, like the majority leader of parliament, being dismissive of those particular experiences, and what that means to the justice process?
I think what I would say is that we should not normalize these things, because one thing, to go out there and speak is a constitutional right. It's there in the constitution. Every Kenyan has got a right to protest, picket, and present petitions to public authorities, and we should not allow the police to take away that right, because it seems like the police they feel that they are a law unto themselves. They are always trying to stop protest, trying to stop demonstrators, and that's not right, because the Constitution says so. That's the same way our Constitution talks about the right to life. Everybody has got a right to life, but we are seeing people being killed everywhere. And they say, as Kimani Ichungwa was saying on that interview, that we have the best constitution in the Sahara's, I don't know what, sub-Saharan Africa or something like that. Yes, we have a good constitution. But the thing is, we don't have the will to implement the constitution. One great lawyer, I don't remember his name, said that we have constitution, but we have no constitutionalism. We don't have constitutionalism. So that is the biggest problem that we have. Because it's a big problem, because people are suffering because of that. Because the constitution is not being followed. The constitution is letting criminals to get away with so much. Now you can't tell me that you go to somebody like Mama Rex or the parents of Brian Odhiambo, Desiree Omondi, David Chege, those who are killed by the government, and tell them that we have a constitution. Where was it when their children were being killed?
Yeah.
Where was that constitution?
Yeah.
How does it protect them? So it means the constitution is for some, to protect some, but not others. So that being arrested every day is not something that you should normalize. I heard people say that Atikama likes being arrested, Julius likes being arrested, but there's nothing like that. You can't come out of your home wanting to go and sleep in a police cell.
Yeah.
But then you see the issues that are happening and you feel that you don't want to keep silent. You want to go there and confront these people. Like before we can forget the issue of the Kanjos again, the city council, and the brutality that they are taking people through. Because it's real to the people there who are powerless, who are helpless against them.
Could you kindly like take us through, because I think people don't understand what brutality looks like sometimes, because I think one of the things that really terrifies us is a lot of people live their lives across the phone screen. They don't fully understand the impact of being subjected, subjected to that kind of inhumanity.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's, I know it's a difficult thing to recount, but if you could take us through so that a lot of people understand this is not just something you view on the TV screen and oh, Julius likes being arrested. That's very problematic thinking, considering the kind of danger you're continually in.
So now you got to view this problem in the damage that has been done to this country through corruption. Because one thing, we are always colliding with the police, we are always colliding with the city council, because we have to. We have got to wake up and go and search for our daily bread in an environment where the city council are there, the police are there, and they are sent to come and harass people who do not have jobs. And it's not my mistake that I don't have a job, a well-paying job. It's not a mistake of the youth who are jobless. It's not their mistake. It's the mistake of the system, the people who are corrupt, the people who we keep recycling into power again and again, and they're betraying our hopes and our aspirations. The other day, I was at the fire station where they park the lorry, and then they stand there arresting people. And I was there trying to inspire people with my placard and telling people that we must stand up against these people who are doing this to innocent people, to helpless people. And I saw them arresting people, most of the people, those people with trolleys, mkokotenis, and I saw men crying, mature men crying, because they've been arrested. Because that person, you have arrested him. That's the only way he knows how to get an income, maybe for his family, for his children, for paying rent, which is very high in this country, especially in the informal settlements. The high cost of living and all that. Then you arrest such a person and his tool of doing his trade, like his trorium cocoten. You see, it's very painful, very humiliating. You find people crying. I saw them crying, but I felt helpless about the situation. But I know that there's a way we can address this issue once and for all. It's only that people do not want to come around and discuss these things and say these injustices must not happen. I mean, we must stop normalizing injustice.
And just to, perhaps I could ask you this. You described, before we got on air, an arrest where you were tortured at the back of the vehicle. Can you just, because I know this isn't the first time or the last time that it happened, right? It's happened multiple times. It's often so hard for us to grasp the amount of violence that is meted on Kenyans who show up to the streets whenever they need to voice their concerns about things. So perhaps you could explain as if you're telling a story of how your experience is and how harrowing it is every time they arrest you.
So that particular day, there were demonstrations happening in town, called by the ODM. That's before the Gen Zs came. There were protests by the ODM. And so I reasoned that I could come to town and because the media were there and people were afraid. You know, people are very afraid of the police in this country. So I'd come there and stand there. But I reasoned if I just stand there, they'll come and arrest me and I will make no impact. So I came with a chain and tied myself with and locked the chain. And so there, I knew they would come, but I was ready for anything. And so I went on, I took my placard out and started giving the people my message. And so the media came, they started capturing the movement and all that. But the police soon came and they saw crowds forming, wanting to listen to what I'm saying or to what I'm doing. And they were afraid because they don't want such kind of thing. They're afraid of such people who are woke, you see, people who are inspiring other people. And so they came, they tried to arrest me, but they found that I had changed myself. And so the police who came first were with horses, those who ride horses.
Okay.
Yeah, and they tried to ask me for the key. I told them I don't have it, I've thrown it away. And so they were like frustrated, they didn't know what to do. So they called the police from Central Police Station, who to me are goons, those who are coming masks and all that, and they're civilian and all that. But they knew me, and they came and asked me, come on, where are the keys? I told them I don't have it, and they should not touch me, because what I'm doing is right, it's constitutional provision, it's a constitutional provision. And so they could not hear none of it. So they took a rubber, a screwdriver, and I think a jack. That's a jack, and they hit it with some stones and all that, and they were able to
remove the lock.
To remove the lock. So they arrested me. After that, put him in the car, and chained me at the grills of the car, and they started beating me. They beat me so badly in the face, in the stomach, everywhere. They were beating me. And they were asking me, come on, Julius, does the country belong to you alone? Why are you always coming out to protest? What, such kind of nonsense. And so one of them took a screw from his pocket, and he held my head and put it inside my left ear. Yeah, it was so painful. In fact, I felt like I had passed out for a minute. It was so painful. I thought I would die. But then, before we could get to the Central Police Station, I came to myself. But I was bleeding. And then I was taken to the cells. I was not taken to hospital. I slept in the cells. The next day I was taken to court. Yeah. And that is how the police are. That's how brutal they are.
And it just, before we also got on air again, he was explaining, I don't know if you can roll this clip. There's a clip of him being arrested around CBD near Archives. And then you were still, as you usually do, passing the message to people who were present. And they were hitting your knees with a tear gas canister.
Exactly.
I remember just hearing the knocking sound on your kneecaps. And I asked you right now how that felt, and you told me that
Yeah, it was painful. Of course it was painful, but after 2 or 3 days, I was okay. Because I think I've become battle-hardened, because these things have happened to me so much. But fortunately, today, they don't mistreat me so much today. Because most of them know me, so they don't mistreat me so much. Maybe they will only arrest me and put me in the cells, but they don't beat me up. But they are beating other people. Like during the Gen Z's time, we were put in a road with some other young guys, even young women, and they were beaten. And I felt so bad. I would confront them and ask them, why are you doing that? Please, it's not right. You know, so we must address those things, because I believe they have happened to me. They will happen in the future if we do not come out and speak about them. In fact, that issue of that day, I followed up the matter with the independent audit unit, that is in Upper Hill. You know, there's IPOA and there's independent audit unit. So I went there and reported with my one comrade, and we wrote a statement and all that. And unfortunately, they did nothing. They will sweet talk you, how they will follow up, and all that. But that's all nonsense. I tried to call them later, but they did not. In fact, it came to a point where they stopped picking my calls, and I could not follow it up anymore, because there was no one backing me up. And that incident, that statement, when I was writing the statement, they asked me if I had noticed maybe one officer or two, and if I know them by name, and I said I know one of them, the one who was the gang leader, because I heard them calling him, and he was a certain Murangeri, and I wrote in the statement.
That's a very distinct name. It's one of those names that you
Now
remember.
I'm bringing you to that.
Yeah.
So now it was a certain Murangeri that was the gang, the leader of the gang, who did that to me. And so they didn't follow up, so those papers are still at home. I could not follow it up. And so after the Gen Zs, that is when we heard that Rex had been killed.
Yes.
And it came out that the same Murangeri is the one who killed Rex. So that's I was telling my people, these things happen. We are always given signals, but we ignore them or refuse to follow up. If that case had been followed up by some people, maybe comrades and all that organizations, maybe he would have been stopped. Maybe he would not have been there on that day, that particular day, to shoot Rex to death.
Yes.
Yeah. So the fact that this is a repeated form of brutality that's ending other people's lives, and Rex's life is a life that we saw, like it's very visible to us because he was there that day, and like there was a follow-up, cameras were there to capture the tragic nature in which he died. And it's very scary when you say that there's a whole other side of it, of something that happened that we don't get to see, and maybe there's more extrajudicial killings that we will probably never witness, and they're probably never going to get justice. And I really hope we move on from this particular brutal space where your rights are trampled on by people whose same rights are also being trampled on by the very people who are sending them to harm you. Like it's almost like they don't see themselves as part of the broken down system that doesn't respect the Constitution, that doesn't respect their own human rights, and does not respect the rights of every single Kenyan. I really hope we can move on from that. And speaking of heartbreaks, we've seen, not even heartbreaks, we've seen the president go to a church and hand out 20 million Kenyan shillings,
20 million.
and then pledged 100 million. And he's comfortably saying, oh, it's God that gave me this mandate. You prayed for me. I got this power. So it's almost like I get to do what I want. And Tom, I think I'll give this to you, considering like you are, like the president is the commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
This is not, it's not like some side gig where you have to impress people. You're not like a celebrity. That's a job. You're supposed to, you like 120 million in the face of so many schools not having capitation, in the face of so many hospitals not having the right equipment, people are actually dying, and you're just like, oh, God gave me this money. Like, what is this supposed to do? And what is the danger of the president moving around like a celebrity, like a podcaster? Like, that's the wrong platform to be using. I have so many words, but I'll give it to you, Tom, just so you could address what this looks like on the other tragedy of things. Yeah.
For me, it looks as if I'd hate to be the person who doesn't place the blame on the president only, but places the blame on institutions like the church that aid such brutality, such misuse of public funds and corruption. Because the president goes to a church which welcomes him, right? And if you remember when he said that speech and promised the 20M that he was giving on the spot, he also mentioned 100M and mentioned a harambe at the church. That was, I believe, meant to build something.
Yes. And also the land.
Also the land that was given back by the KDF, right? And him saying that I told the what's it called, the KDF, wanajeshi, to stand down so you guys can have this land. You look at that entire chain of actions and you'd immediately think, okay, somebody's aiding this. And look who was behind the president during the protests. Who was it? The church. Look who the president is using as a podium every Sunday to spew hate, to spew division, and to also apologize for the killing of young Kenyans. Who is it? The church. And so it's hard for you to sit down and think that the president stood there and he said all these things just because he had an army of people around him. who was clapping when he promised the 20 million? Kenyans. And Julius, you said something when we were off air, that religion is used as a tool of oppression to almost make people as illogical. I think I'd like to say illogical because that's what religion does to Africans. We are in churches every day clapping. Our leaders go to funerals because kuna mapadri and they're given a chance to speak. And it's always in the presence of the church that all the nonsense that you can imagine in Kenya happens, right? So I don't know what you feel about that, because whenever I see the president go to church on Sunday, I usually say this. At 12 p.m. on Sunday, all politicians are on podiums somewhere saying something stupid to Kenyans.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real problem. It's a deep problem, and I think we have to become real. We have to become authentic if we are to come out of this brainwashing, because it's brainwashing. You yourself said off air that the church is a place where logic goes out of the window, and I think I also say it goes out of the heart. Because I believe God is not there in that church that is behaving like so. Because you cannot ignore the problems of the people and go to play politics or populism.
In church.
That's what we call it. That is so bad. I mean, everybody has failed. These people we call religious leaders, they are out to take advantage of Kenyans. Gullible Kenyans, ignorant Kenyans. Instead of teaching them what they should do, instead of teaching them that this is their money, that is being misused like this, that is being mishandled, mismanaged. In fact, if we were serious, if the church were to get serious, we would be able to stop corruption in this country. Because the church is a very strong institution. It has a powerful voice, but then they are not doing it because they are also part of the system. They have joined the gravity train, the eating train. Somebody said you cannot overturn the table of injustice if you are eating from the same table of injustice. The church is eating from the table of injustice, of corruption in this country. The church has become the place where corruption is sanitized. It's so sad.
It is.
It's so sad, my people.
Because
to your point, just like additionally, and I think this is magnified in another way, where that psychosis that we see is in church is seen in like around politicians and the political parties that they form. And we just saw Martha Karua formed the People's Liberation Party. And the guests who are there are just like a recycling of every single politician we've seen. And also the sycophancy, I feel like the sycophancy we see in church is also the sycophancy we see in political spaces. It's almost like the same kind of psychosis. I don't know if people, again, the logic just goes out of the window. And also, do you see this new political party as some kind of new wave? Which, me, I have no faith. I'll not even lie. I have absolutely no faith in any new movement that is not incorporating the voices of people who want to change things.
Which are the same faces.
Yeah. So I want you to let us know, like, if Martha Karua's PLP, Gachagua being behind her, and everyone who's like joining, is this reminiscent of like the NAC of 2002, or is this just like another failed political ploy of the same people trying to find a seat at the table?
I think it is because we, the people, have refused to come into that space to show these people that we are tired, because we have come to realize now we have information at our hands. People are information is so easy to get these days. People know things today. It's not like the days of yesterday when people were ignorant. Today there's the social media, the TikTok, the Twitter, and all that as alternative media. So we cannot blame a lack of information. We have information, but we are not using that information to face these people, to confront these systems that have refused us to live our dreams or to realize our potential. And I think that is what we must do now. Like that issue of people, the whatever politicians coming together. I think we have come to a point where we must not insist on uniting the people, because people will pass away, but the issues will remain. I think we have come to a point where we must unite around issues. And I think that's the only way that this country will change. Because for so long, since independence and even before, the politics of this country has never been about issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is since 1963 up to now. It has never been about issues. It has always been about the interests of a certain few individuals who are close to power, who are connected to the who and who is in government.
Yeah.
It's not about the people. It has never been about the people. But
Yeah.
we have bought these rubbish, and we have lived with it instead of rebelling against it, instead of coming out and telling them, you are men like us, and we'll face you under until we get power to really take control of our lives,
Of our lives.
and our resources and our country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just again, speaking of control and like what power does, we've seen this week that 1.3 trillion was withdrawn manually.
Yeah, sure.
And the Treasury came out and said, we did not do anything illegal. Actually, the money went to the places it was supposed to go. It went to county disbursements, it went to pensions, it went to the equalization fund, it went to all the places that it was supposed to go. But they said they cannot provide the evidence now, that it will only be provided in due time. And I'll join that with the story of what happened in the SACCOs.
Yeah.
We saw Cusco, so 12.5 billion was embezzled, stolen, mismanaged by the very top level officials. And these SACCOs are literally the lifeline for a lot of Kenyans who do not use traditional banking, or the banking sector does not accommodate them. And to have a very, how do I say this, a very critical part, a very critical financial part of the economy be completely mishandled and completely shattered in this way. Couple this with the story of the 1.3 trillion withdrawn manually and still no accountability. Do you think we have any kind of financial protections as a country? What is our course of action outside of the justice system for the people who've been harmed? Because court processes could take some time. And I want to hear you from Tom and from Julius too, like, what do you believe is a course of action people could take to protect the financial institutions that they've built, that they invest in, and they actually, that's your life. It's literally your life. What do you think people can do?
To me, it's a trend that we've been seeing for far too long, right? This Cusco scandal is something that I think it emerged last year, but investigations have been properly concluded this year. But if you look at the trend of misuse of public funds, or even just complete and blatant disregard for public laws against finance management, how sinister is it that Kenya has been, and by Kenya here I'm not speaking about regular Kenyans, I'm speaking about the people in the Houses of Parliament, that they've been openly throwing outside all the books of law that manage finance around this country. And by that I mean, look at the Auditor General's report and the Control of Budget reports. You'll find two things that are regularly mentioned. One is the Public Finance Management Act, and two is the Procurement and Asset Disposals Act. Those two acts, that's where a lot of money is channeled through the Kenyan government, right? And those two acts are the ones that are regularly, and by regularly I mean not only in procurement only, but even in procuring of loans abroad, that are regularly disregarded and stepped upon by our members of parliament and the Senate, and they always get away with it. Best example is Eurobond. There's a lot of talk of, we don't even know where this money went.
Even what happened with the Finland scam
Exactly.
recently, what happened with Moi University, and even right now, I think Nairobi UON is also facing the same kind of challenges, where it almost feels like they're being attacked. Not just financially, but like it's a shattering of institutions. And this distrust, what do you feel like that is going to breed over the next couple of years if people cannot trust the financial institutions, if they cannot depend on places that they've relied so heavily on? What is that going to become in the next couple of, not even years, months? What could that spiral into? And I'm going to give this to you, Julius.
Okay, I think we need to have these conversations. We need to have these talks because we must open up the minds of our people.
Yeah.
Because they must understand it's their lives that are at stake, their livelihoods that are at stake. I believe corruption has reached a point where it scares you even. I mean, people are stealing like there's no tomorrow. I mean, like even like there are people who they're inhuman. I mean, that is, they're so inhuman because where does all this money, how does it help you? Because if we could stop corruption in this country, things would work for everyone and everyone would be satisfied with what we have. This country is so rich. We have a lot of money and we have hardworking and enterprising people. But the big letdown we have in this country is corruption.
Yeah.
And it's corruption done at those higher levels, government offices. And it's time for us to expose these things and hold our leaders into account. For instance, that issue you have talked about, the Finland scandal. Those people, like Mercy Tarus talked about that, but nobody was held to account. Yeah. These people were not taken anywhere. So when these people realize there's nowhere you can take them, they're like, what will you do? Yeah. And so it becomes something that will repeat again in the future. It becomes a threat for them because they're not being punished by the law. And I believe that's a problem we have.
And what
very weak laws in our country. That's the problem we have.
I actually think the opposite. I think we have very robust laws in this country.
Yeah, it's the follow-through.
It's the follow-through. It's the institutions that are meant to implement these laws. And I saw a tweet earlier today, somebody saying, I beg to just bite what they're saying. I don't know if bite is the right word, but it's just plagiarize what they're saying. But they were saying that the most corrupt institutions in Kenya are the ones that are meant to be gatekeepers of public funds, right?
Yes.
By that I mean ESCC, I mean Cusco, I mean IPOA, I mean the National Assembly, which is meant to oversight a lot of these things. So these people who are meant to gatekeep a lot of the laws that protect a lot of Kenyans are the same people who are easily bribed out of their positions. And that's what results into what we see. These Auditor General reports, and the Auditor General and the Controller of Budgets, I think those are the two offices that are currently protecting Kenyans to some degree.
Yes.
They don't protect the money
and
because
just
they
like
come
making
after.
us aware of how much is going
Absolutely.
wrong. And I think one of the things that scares me is just like corruption does not just look like taking people's money, it's shattering people's futures. It's taking away every single hope, dream, the single lifeline. Because for a lot of people whose healthcare is not working, maybe they're feeling like if I could get money from my SACCO, maybe I'd be able to pay for all these things that have back payments and stuff that I cannot afford. And when those are shattered, it means people do not have much. Outside of, if you're lucky enough to own land, you probably don't have anything else, or a house. So,
and even that, they take it away from you.
Yes.
Because the affordable housing program.
It's the affordable housing program, which is like largely a land issue, and I could literally go insane talking about this. But I will just like pivot, a hard pivot to the story that we saw with Kenya's foreign policy. You guys remember the foreign PS sending out a deep fake video on Twitter and acting like, oh, this is just normal, and it stayed up for hours. And that was the same very week that the RSF was forming a parallel government for Sudan here, and they were inviting genocideers and war criminals, and they were acting like this is normal. And now the Saudi Arabians and Qataris are now pushing back against the actions that GOK took. The government of Kenya was very, we're just going to do it and like get some quick money. And now we are in a position where that money has not been forthcoming yet, but the Qataris and the Saudis are like, we do not want to play games with people's lives, and maybe they could be saving face. But what position, like this is a corrupt position, like the Kenyan government has also placed us in, not just continentally, but like internationally. Like our diplomacy is looking a little skeevy. So what do you think is the future of diplomacy in this country if the president can blatantly in his administration have people send out fake videos, fake
Yeah.
letters, fake all this. It's
Yeah.
literally just a charade.
It really is.
How is this going to affect our relationships with our neighbors, our international relationships, and our position if the people who we are playing the game for are also rejecting our advances? See what I did there?
Should I start? I think it's just a government that is morally corrupt and with blood on its hands, endorsing another party that is just the same as it is. So, and I'm not absolving the UAE, is it Saudi Arabia?
Yes, I think Saudi
Saudi
Arabia
Arabia
and Qatar.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not absolving any of those two parties because they also play the geopolitical game, and that's what I think this ultimately is. And Sudan is considered a somewhat Arab country.
Yes.
So, and the powerhouses in the in the Middle East are who? It's Qatar, it's Saudi Arabia, it's UAE, it's the same players, it's Kuwait, it's all those folks. And so if they stand on the opposite side of Kenya, I think this is a huge embarrassment and egg on the face of Kenyan government authorities. And I'm curious to see how this moves forward. Will President Ruto double down and continue supporting RSF? I know the money is good, probably, but will he, for once, just be on the right side of things and stand,
The right side?
Yeah, and
No.
the right side of history. I don't think he has.
I don't think he has a right
Yeah.
side.
You don't think
I
so?
just think it's like one giant left, just moving in the wrong direction. I feel like that's how
Yeah.
he operates. At least for me, that's the worry, where it's not about being correct.
Yeah.
It's about how much you can extract. And we've seen this in how he behaves locally,
Yeah.
how he behaves with our partners, the people he chooses to ally himself with. And I don't know, Julius, if you have a perspective on what, not just the president, but like what Kenya Kwanza represents as a diminishing of Kenya as a regional force, and how that is going to crush us in the future, considering we're not even building the alliances that are supposed to help the country.
I think by the decisions that we are making, we are embarrassing ourselves internationally and everywhere else. And I believe it's time for us to have consultations as we make these decisions. Because I believe the problem is that we have people in power who have been there for so long, and they are bereft of ideas. And I think they don't have any plan for this country. Politicians do not have any plan for this country. I think the only plan they have is to loot and loot and loot and loot. And unless we find a way to stop them, we'll keep embarrassing ourselves everywhere. And I believe also there is that issue of other nations taking advantage of the weakness or the hypocrisy of our leaders. Because there's a time when you must say no to some issues to protect your people, your own people. And I think our leaders do not have the backbone to resist some of these things, some of the policies that are also punitive to our people. Like we saw with the finance bill. The finance bill, I believe it was being forced upon our nation and East African countries by the IMF and World Bank. But our leaders do not have the backbone to say no, we cannot take these. Like the way it is happening in Burkina Faso. The Burkina Faso leader at least is showing that Africans can stand up and say we can do our own things our own way. We must not depend on them. But we will depend on them if we keep on stealing what we have, what we produce. In fact, we produce nothing, and then we are stealing the little that we have. So it's a very, very complicated issue that needs everybody to come on board so that it can be solved. Because I believe corruption does a very big harm in the short term and also in the long term.
Corruption is cannibalizing. What you said, like not having a backbone, I don't know how Kenya Kwanza can grow a backbone given how we've seen one person is made of oranges and the other one is just all left. So
No right.
No right. Never a right in sight. I think just like, and we see this for people with no vision. We've seen like Microsoft's the Skype is shutting down, which is truly hilarious. And
Yeah.
we've seen how also not having a backbone and not having any form of allyship and jumping ship when your allies really need them,
Yeah.
like how the US is dealing with the Ukraine and Russia situation,
Yeah.
where Zelensky was literally just abandoned and gaslit in front of the whole world, and they made a mockery of him in the White House. And how we can see, I feel like Kenya is kind of like for the future of America, where people who are guiding you also do not know what they're doing. But they have so much faith
Yeah.
in their own nonsense, in their own how much they're lost.
Yeah.
And that's what they're using as a guiding light, and
Yeah.
hoping that the person on the other side has goodwill. Yeah. And how do you reconcile people with no vision, people
Yeah.
with no backbone, not just leading at a regional level, but like at very high positions, people with nuclear bombs. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the rest of the world? What does that mean?
It-
I'm asking
yeah.
you because I'm
It-
actually worried.
I think
Yeah.
the mask fell off on the West January 6th, when a lot of things fell apart, and we Africans are always considered to be the people who don't respect democratic processes, the savages, and what we saw on January 6th was the fall of that entire mask. And continually we've been seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
The hate and tribalism that they accuse Africans of, that's the same hate and tribalism that you see Americans amongst themselves. The kind of vitriol, hate that we were accused of spewing against each other, and that leads to violence, that's exactly the same thing that you're seeing there. And to me, and I'll connect it back to WhatsApp and Skype, I don't know how those two are connected, but I'll find a way. Those two instances of this continuing hate amongst Western nations, amongst people in the West, and January 6th, that was when everything fell apart. And I don't think Africa should aspire to have a democracy like that. Not a democracy which is run, although we're seeing a bit of it here, not a democracy that is run by industrialists and people who only care about money. And that's the problem with letting governments be run by businessmen, because they only think about the money. They never think about the human side of running an entire government that people depend on. And I read an article yesterday, Elon Musk berating welfare projects.
Social security,
Exactly.
he's attacking Medicaid,
Exactly.
SNAP benefits. It's almost like you don't deserve to live
Just because you don't
if
have
you
money.
don't make profit for
Yes.
me. Yeah.
Which is very dangerous. It's the same rhetoric that you're seeing abroad that I think is creeping into the Kenyan space.
I think
slowly.
we are the leaders of poor judgment and poor governance. They're not taking that away from
Yeah.
us. If anything, we're handing the baton back to the West.
Yes, absolutely. We're just a reflection of the people who control us, because I believe ultimately Kenya is controlled by the institutions that feed it.
Unfortunately.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we can't feed ourselves and we keep eating our own. We'll always reach out to people for loans because we squander the money that we have, our leaders. Now, not us again. It's the leaders. It's the people in power in Kenya.
But also Kenyans are a little complicit, and I think
Yeah,
Julius
we
has
are.
brought this up. It's
Yeah.
kind of tiring fighting for Kenyans, because it's like you're holding,
Yeah,
you're like,
of course.
Yeah.
We are very, very complicit in our own oppression, and I think we are responsible for allowing ourselves to be looted and unoppressed for so long.
Yeah.
And again, I think what you are talking about is the system of capitalism.
Yes.
Capitalism, I think it's the system that controls the whole world.
It is.
It's a system of money where people are, and it has made people so individualistic.
It's a very predatory system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, predatory. Yeah, that's the word. So in such kind of system, it's only that money that matters, money and profit. So these institutions are out to make profit at the expense of the people. And that's why there's so much suffering. There are so many people, majority have got nothing to live on, because these people, the minority who control the world money and the system of the world, are taking away everything.
Yes.
Like the resources that we have, like now, I think we have come to a point where even we Kenyans must bring this out into the limelight, and it must become a rallying call for Kenyans. we must create an anti-British sentiment in this country, like they're doing in Burkina Faso and the other so-called Sahel states.
Yeah.
They're kicking away the French and telling them you have been taking away our mines at very little money or freely without tax for so long. It's the same thing that happens here in Kenya.
Yeah.
We are not control of our resources.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have minerals here in Kenya that are taken away secretly without any tax. And it's supposed to benefit the people of Kenya, but it's not benefiting Kenyans.
Yes.
It's benefiting foreigners and foreign nations. And I think that is the issue of hidden hand of foreign interference in the Kenya's politics. That is something that we have never talked about. It's something that we have never realized, that we are controlled by foreign nations, by the people who colonized our people, by the people who killed our fathers and our grandfathers. Yeah, so I believe that's where we have come. And in fact, my message are there out in the streets for people to know what I've been talking about. The message that I came without in the beginning was that colonialism never really ended.
Yes, that's what you always say.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. And I think everybody is seeing the evidence of that.
Every day.
Like Kwame Nkrumah said that we are now witnessing the very last stages of colonialism, which is worse than the first stages. And that is why everything has gone berserk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing is working.
Speaking of things going berserk, we kind of have to crazily wrap this episode as we wrap our heads around what our futures are going to look like. And I'm going to, before I come to you for the last word, especially going into a week where so much is changing politically, so much is changing for a lot of people socially, even mentally. I would like to hand this to Tom because we need to do the public participation part of it, and I would like you to tell us what to look forward to this week and what we need to contribute to and what we need to join Julius in protesting for, like not just in the comforts of our houses, but every day when we speak about these issues, what we need to raise. So,
first of all, before I even start speaking about this, I think Justine, you put me onto this. Shout out to Bungelama Youth for putting together a lot of these documents. Whoever created this platform, God bless you. But there are 7, I think I've counted 7 bills that are going to be tabled in Parliament as we proceed the next coming weeks or months. But this is a public participation segment where we should be equipping Kenyans with the knowledge on how they should participate in these bills before they even appear on tables of Parliament. So the first one is the Elections Amendment Bill, then the Political Parties Amendment Bill, the Public Finance Management Bill, the Intergovernmental Relations Amendment Bill, the Fire and Rescue Services Professional Bill, the Public Transport Bill, and lastly, and contentiously, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Bill, number 41 of 2024. And this was sponsored by Honorable Aiden Duale, who is also the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Climate Change and Forestry in Kenya. Now, I find the timing of this bill a bit sinister because I think I mentioned in the last program that the Computer Misuse Bill Act is probably the most abused act in this country, especially over the past year, because every time that people mobilized around causes, they were taken to court and you are mostly accused of breaking this bill. And even the June 25th people who were arrested on those days, and I believe also Kibet Bull.
Yeah, and even in Isiolo, when those people booed the president, they were
accused of that.
Yeah, of like mishandling. I think some of them shared something online, and then others were accused for being drunk and disorderly. So we see
it's that bill, and to me it's a bit sinister that this bill is being tabled in Parliament for amendment at this time, at a time when Kenyans are starting to mobilize around causes online. And I'd like to read a bit of this short one-sentence brief that was given by this document from the National Assembly. It says, the bill seeks to amend the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, Cap 79C, to prohibit the use of electronic mediums to promote terrorism and extreme religious cultic practices. Now forget the second part. I want us to dwell on the first part, terrorism. I believe that we had laws that would counter terrorism, but then it's a bit sinister that And you'd remember, I want you to focus on the word terrorism because that's what people who went into parliament in June 25th were accused of. You are accused of being a terrorist, and I think Kimani Ichungwa in his interview also said treasonous criminals.
Treasonous criminals.
Exactly.
He regurgitated what the president said.
Exactly. And how do you define somebody who's fighting the state? A terrorist. Exactly. So to me, it seems a bit sinister that this bill, and the person who's suggesting this bill in parliament is Aidan Duale, who was the person who also said that there were terrorists and treasonous elements outside parliament, and they were goons hired by politicians to disrupt the normal functioning of government. So this bill, I think, will have a closer look at it, but the problem is that the memorandum that you're supposed to submit to Parliament is supposed to be submitted by 5th of March, which is Wednesday in 2 days. I wonder why this comes to light, and we have 5 days to submit our thoughts around these acts. But in general, this just seems like something Kenyans should focus on. And I hope that in the next episode of The Big Picture, we can have time to get into these bills. And the other one that also caught my attention was the public transport motorcycle regulations bill. This is, I think, something that should be regulated because border accidents, I think the last time I looked at it was like 70% of accidents that are recorded in emergency sections of our biggest hospitals come from motorcycle accidents. So I think this is a sector that should be regulated. Also, if you go into other countries, you see that people wear helmets, but in Kenya, sometimes even the driver, the guy who's riding the motorcycle and his passenger do not have helmets. So yes, and the public finance management bill, political parties amendment bill, the elections bill, this is, I think, a result of the NADCO committee and its proposals. But the last one, again, the computer misuse and cyber crimes amendment bill, it's a bit fishy that we are tabling this thing in Parliament to amend it. And it's the only law that has been, I think, protecting Kenyans because there's a clear distinction between somebody who's advocating for causes and somebody who's inciting violence.
Yes.
And often the government likes to blur the lines.
Just so they can make it easier to arrest and mishandle people. And I'll give it to you, to Julius, before I give my take as we wrap up the show. What is something that you believe Kenyans can imagine differently for the country? Because when we fight the good fight in our whatever small way, because I feel like a lot of people are rising up to the occasion, even if it's not magnified. You are one of them, and thank you so much for your work. But I would like you to share with us an imagination of what a different country that is more prosperous, more accepting of change and constitutionalism, what is that going to look like for you, and like somewhere you would like to live? I think that would be nice for you to share with us.
Okay, one thing I believe is that we have complicated things so much as human beings, and as they say, the leadership, the people in government. They want us to think that things are very hard to tackle or to address, but that's not the case. You know, we must do things that still identify with the people that we are supposed to represent. That's the people there in the villages, the people in the city, the people in the slums. They want to see things working. The only thing that the average Kenyan wants to see, those people are coming to the streets, is to see things working. A better Kenya where we can dream of a future where everybody can be and can become innovative, and they can become original and contribute to the national economy or to the national life of this country. So I believe, as I said, we have made ourselves so complicated, and we want people to believe that we cannot have change and have people who are more humane, or systems that are more humane. But it's time has come for us to have that debate. Why African leaders must kill their people, why African leaders must subject their people to so much humiliation for the sake of clinging to power, for the sake of remaining in power. I think we need to define what power is. And I believe to do that, I quote Martin Luther King Jr. when he was fighting for civil rights in America, because we are also fighting for rights. He was asked by a clever journalist, and now you're doing all this, you have fought, you've been jailed, you have almost been killed. Do you want power? And Martin Luther King Jr. said, yes, I want power. But I want power that is good, power that is moral, power that is right. I also dream of a day when we shall have that kind of power today in Kenya. And let nobody lie to us that we cannot have that kind of power.
Yeah.
Give me that seat and I'll manage the issues of Kenyans. What's so complicated about leadership? About seeing that everybody is contented, is happy, is seeing that the country is working for him. Yeah. I mean, they are getting what they're supposed to. What they are supposed to do. There are countries that where systems are working. Yeah. The other day I was working with I was talking to a woman, a white woman from Faroe Islands, and she told me, I'm humbled. I feel so much humbled because I see what is happening in your country. It's so bad, but I am a product of a country where systems work. From nursery, the school fees is paid for you, primary, university, they start paying you and all that. But see, I've seen things and I've almost cried. I mean, she said, here things are really bad, really terrible. So is this the life that we want to subject to our people forever? I think that's not what we want. Because one thing, we are people who are honest, and that is what are lacked in this country. Honest people who can really do things that are in an honest way. And so that's what we must do, and we must look for and believe it can happen, and it can be done.
I absolutely love your imagination being like, we want power, but we want power that's good, power that's actually impactful to people's lives, and I think that's a beautiful takeaway. Thank you so much, Julius. So before we wrap up, I'm gonna give a little advice going into the rest of this week and probably the rest of this month. The Kenyan government is a disaster, but this is proof that Tyler Perry no longer holds the monopoly on televised mediocrity. You know, we can do it too. This administration is standing outside those, was standing outside those gates, you know, for vibes and embarrassment, but that rubbed off on this government. And your case is on 5, you know, it's not even scripted. We're just doing this because we can. And I think that's a very big for the let down community. You know, we are pushing the envelope on what let down can look like. And I know going into this week, you're physically, mentally, and soulfully hurt. But we don't have a single working dustbin in most of Nairobi's CBD. But, you know, we saw Mosiria was sick. Maybe that contributed to the whole problem. But when we think of universal healthcare in this country, we are thinking about, we don't have universal healthcare, but they think universal healthcare is owning a portal to take money. And also, a lot of we've seen Mandera doesn't have water.
Yes.
And one of the highlights for me was the governors and the senators and the people who are from that county live in Nairobi, and they were holding iftar during this holy month of Ramadan at the expense of their own citizens. And I'm thinking, may thunder strike you. I don't know what the equivalent of that should be, but I think if your constituents don't have water, that's where you should be in community with, not someplace in South Sea enjoying your constituents' money. So today is also a very special day for me. Happy I only have one wife day to all of you who celebrate. I'm a big fan.
There's a day for that.
Yeah, no, I celebrate it. I don't know who else celebrates, but I absolutely love that. The late Lucy Kibaki was a big lover girl, and she made her whole husband come in front of the television and say, you know, my man, my man, my man. That was really funny.
She wrote the blueprint.
Yes, she's the blueprint. And we need more first ladies who are kind of crazy.
She's the reason you get posted on Valentine's.
Yes,
actually.
She was the first. She was the first hard launch, and I think we should be so proud of Lucy for bringing that to the forefront. Outside of just advocating for HIV, medicine to be in every dispensary, she did a lot of good work. But I just love that she was a lover girl. And lastly, this is something. This is more soulful, and we should all remember, you know, we might not know what the future holds, but tomorrow a politician will definitely run their mouth at the expense of your sanity. So turn that TV off, put your phone upside down, yell into the abyss, whatever helps you sleep during this end of democracy around the world, but keep fighting. As Julia said, we need good power, and we can do it. So
that's a beautiful way to end it.
Thank you so much.
So you had a balance of optimism and a bit of pessimism.
Yes.
And then you had really optimistic thoughts from Julius.
Yes.
And then I was just somewhere sat in the middle, just as lukewarm as usual. But yeah, that's very it's such a sentimental thing that we should all remember.
Yeah.
As we deal with the kleptocracy.
Yes, the
It's a mouthful.
kakistocratic. I don't know.
Yes,
I'm
that
saying
is
all those
Kenya.
words wrong. I'm sorry. My pronunciation has flown out of the window like any kind of good governance.
You can say anything that's democratic.
Yes, but thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Big Picture. I would like to say thank you again to Julius for joining us and sharing. You say colonialism?
Never really ended.
Yes,
Yeah.
colonialism
We're still
never
being colonized.
Yes, we're still
Yeah.
being colonized. So to decolonize, you have to fight a little harder. And I know we can all do it. And thank you so much, Tom, for co-hosting. And please remind these people to participate.
Participate.
Yeah.
Participate.
Okay. I've been your co-host, Justine, and I will see you guys next week.